It may look like a harmless bagel toaster, but inside is a deadly donut. How do you know PlayStation is not a normal game system?
Hey everybody, welcome back to Game Esoterica, a continuing series of the PlayStation 1 Paradise. So I take a look at some of my favorite PlayStation 1 games of all time, both in 3D and in 2D, and you probably don't know which one this one is today unless you like the deep cuts. This is Panzer Bandit, and I know what you're thinking, this looks exactly like Guardian Heroes, and that is 100% true, but they were made by different teams. This game runs on the same engine as a game that used to run on the Sharp X68000 when it was ported over to the PlayStation 1. It's got a great lineage, I love the game, it's got some amazing 2D sprites and backgrounds, and it's a beat 'em up, so you know I'm absolutely going to love the game. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But Panzer Bandit is a beat 'em up through and through, and it uses the same multiplane system that Guardian Heroes did on the Sega Saturn. So much so that apparently if you read reviews of the era, it does criticize it for borrowing from that game a little bit too much. But outside of the multiplane existence, this game feels like it stands on its own, and I absolutely love everything it does. It's a beat 'em up, so you know the mechanics aren't going to be incredibly deep. You beat everything on screen like it owes you money until it explodes into a fireball. You move to the right and you continue to do it over and over again. Beat 'em ups have never been the most complex genre, but I absolutely love them, and this is one of my favorites on the PlayStation 1. It's also one of my favorite 2D games on the system. I love the sprite work, I love the sprite scaling, the backgrounds, everything about this game is just so good to look at in motion. And I get that the backgrounds are animated, they really aren't doing much, but that's fine because there's so much action going on screen at once that you really don't need to even look at the background. But mechanically, this game has a ton of different things going on for it, and I'm going to walk you through them as I play along with the game. And there's so many different parries, blocks, throws, and juggles you can do in Panzer Bandit, it sometimes almost feels like a fighting game without the inputs. There's so many enemies on screen at once, the game's always fast and fluid with its performance, but you 100% have to manage every single thing going on around you or else you're going to get swarmed by enemies and take an absolute beating here. Picking up an enemy, knocking it into another enemy, and throwing it's definitely going to always do damage. That is a pro move that you want to focus on, especially in later levels because there's going to be so many different enemies on screen at once, you're really going to have to manage them all. But I particularly love the boss battles as well because they come with a metric crap ton of health, and trying to figure out the different weaknesses, patterns, and strategies for defeating a boss is a ton of fun. And you do need to get really good at Panzer Bandit very quickly because this almost feels like an arcade game that was made slightly longer for a home console. You can beat this game from start to finish in one sitting so long as you're good enough to not run out of credits. So it's a really good pick up and play game as well because you're not going to be here for 20, 30, 40 hours. You sit down, you play for a couple hours, you see the credits roll. That is what you're getting out of this game, but that's a fun thing. I know we're so used to games that last 100, 200 hours now, but when I just have a little bit of time, something like Panzer Bandit, played either on Duckstation original hardware or on my Steam Deck, 100% satisfies all my retro gaming cravings without having to spend 10 hours just to get into something. As we move on to the next area, we always have these scrub enemies that are going to change their costumes per the area. We're now in an aquatic level and they become bandits. And you'll see here as I hop 2 and 4 into the foreground and into the background, just how that sprite scaling works, both when you zoom out as well as when you scale back and forth into the screen. I don't think this game is as good as Guardian Heroes. If this game is an A-, then Guardian Heroes is an A+. But if you played Guardian Heroes, 100% loved it, and think to yourself, I wish there was more games that played like that game, then Panzer Bandit was 100% here for you. It is basically just Mad Stalker on PlayStation 1 or the Sharp X68000, except in a colorful fantasy vibe versus being a cyberpunk city. And if you've never played Mad Stalker, I can't recommend that game enough as well. I almost put it on this list but pulled it at the last second for this one. But again, just all the juggling, all of the enemies on screen at once. This is a very complex game that you really need to manage, and you'll see here just how that juggling works. If you get them in just the right position, you can juggle your opponent or multiple opponents at the same time, start knocking them around the screen. If you learn it and you use it, it's going to make the game a lot easier. But this game also has a spectacular soundtrack, one of my favorites. Go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back. Really fun soundtrack that just sells the fantasy vibes of this game. As we get to another boss battle here, I love that each individual boss has their own patterns and movesets and overall strategy. A game like this could just be simple, and in the levels in and of themselves, it isn't the most complicated thing ever. You just hit the buttons until you beat your opponents enough for them to explode, and then you continue on to beat up more opponents in new and fun ways. But you can lose your mech in this game with this character, and that's going to put you at a big disadvantage, so understanding how the health bar works and dealing with that is going to be a big component of Panzer Bandit. And I get it. These are simple games. Beat 'em ups have never been complicated, they've never been complex, they've never had the deepest gameplay mechanics. But I love that sometimes. Not every single game needs to teach me every single move. Sometimes it's fun just to turn on a video game, start pushing buttons, and immediately be rewarded with watching things blow up on screen and just shoot coins in every which direction. But you will see here as I stack enemy sprites on top of one another, that is a big component of this game and something you really need to manage. Where you are on the screen, how you move your character around, and how you try to bait your enemies to stack up on top of one another. Once they stack, every single hit is worth double damage because you're hitting two enemies at the same time. It's a big strategy and it's definitely going to help you see the end quicker. But another thing I love about this game is just how weird and charming it is. You have these dudes, the scrub enemies, just running around, and now they have a train that they're basically going through the area on as well. You need to destroy each train before you can move forward, and you can do it in so many different ways. You can just pummel on it, you can land on top and start hitting it, you can literally let it run into you and just blast it until it blows up off screen. It is just so much fun and it feels so creative. Every single level has something new and unique and different to see and different types of enemies. And I love these mechs here as well. They kind of look like ducks, but they seem to have more like dog feet. I don't know what they're supposed to be. Leave me a comment down below if you have any ideas, but it just makes me smile every time I see them in motion. And that's the thing about a game like Panzer Bandit. It's not deep, it's not complex, but the couple hours you spend with it are going to be an absolute blast. And if you play with a friend, it's going to be even that much more fun. The one thing I wish it did do is maybe a little bit more interactivity with the backgrounds, a little bit more animation, but I get it. They had so many different sprites to move around screen at once, and they wanted to keep the frame rate consistent, and I've never once seen this game slow down in gameplay. It 100% works all the time, and that is amazing for a beat 'em up. Great bosses, great animation, great charm, and again, a great soundtrack. One last sample, and I'll be right back and tell you a little bit more history of the game. The voice acting is not much, but I do love that yes, I left it in there. It sounds like an anime Macho Man Randy Savage come to life. As we get further into Panzer Bandit, every single stage has something new and unique to show to you, like these alien statues in the background. Never really explains why they're there, but it's something fun, and we get this giant marble bust here. Definitely looks a little bit like Abe Lincoln from the big memorial on the mountainside, but honestly I don't think it is. But this giant duck robot just drills right through, and we're into another fight. And again, the story of this game is just so much fun. It's basically Guardian Heroes from a completely different company that remade Mad Stalker from the X68000 for PlayStation 1. So this game basically has a direct lineage to the Sharp X68000 all the way through to the PS1, and I absolutely love both of those consoles, so of course I'm going to love this game. And that's the fun of Panzer Bandit. It is just fun. It's not trying to be anything else other than a good time. It's here to wine you and dine you, give you 2 hours of satisfaction and send you on your way. And honestly, who could ever complain about something like that? It's got everything you need in a beat 'em up, and I do love the levels as well. All of the depth in the background, that infinity pool down below there, kind of recessing below the stage. It does have a decent amount of parallax if you look for it, and it just does work. But this is just a classic through and through beat 'em up. People either love this genre or can't stand it, it seems. So tell me down below which category you're in. If you grew up playing a lot of 2D beat 'em ups, I think you're going to love it. But for the people that didn't grow up in that era, things like this, Guardian Heroes, Final Fight, might feel a little bit paint by numbers just because the game never asks you to do too much. It doesn't ask you to do much, but it totally gives you a fun sense of satisfaction while you're doing it. And that is why Panzer Bandit is one of my favorite PlayStation 1 2D games of all time. But trust me, I got more 2D games coming up, something very similar to this, but completely different at the same time. But tell me down below if you played the game, and if not, are you planning on playing it after this video? But we are done. I've got more videos throughout the week, but Panzer Bandit, 10 out of 10, definitely check it out. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.